when peace like a river are tended away, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever, my Lord, thou hast taught me to say, it is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well. It is well with my soul. And Lord, haste the day when my faith shall beside the clouds be rolled back as the scroll. The trump shall resound, and the Lord shall descend. Even so, it is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. With my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well. It is well with my soul.
Happy Sabbath. I hope we are doing well, and I trust that the Lord has kept us, and we've been having a blessed Sabbath, and I trust that the Lord has spoken to us. To those who are here to have their service, I trust that the Lord will still speak to you. So I welcome you to episode 19 of A Story of Unfulfilled Dreams. This has been quite a journey. We've been learning so much, and I'm not sure if I'm sad. I don't know, I have mixed emotions, but this will be marking the end of this first season of A Story of Unfulfilled Dreams. But the hope is that amidst all these different stories and scenarios that we have shared, there is some story that has talked to you, that has touched you, that has been personal to you. So I just thought of reflecting just before we talk about our story today. We're just going to do our story. We're just going to do a little reflection on the previous lessons that you had learned, and if you've missed them, do make it a point to go and look them up. There's a whole playlist of A Story of Unfulfilled Dreams. So as we kickstarted the show, we had Dennis Dubet telling us about shaken but still standing, how she had all these COVID plans pre-COVID, and they all went just like that, but God was still faithful. Ndula Mopoli and Tafadzwa Langarira took us through their different detours that life had to take them, but how ultimately God also had proved faithful in their own lives. Takunda Timbe took us through the professional Christian, how it may not be easy to still maintain your being a Christian in the workplace, but still God remains faithful. Fadzimade talking about trusting his heart when you can't trace his hand. Still maintaining your trust in God, still blessing him even when you lose your family members one after the other, and you're also feeling like you're the next in line to even die. Sometimes it takes a mountain. Sometimes the things that we hold so much are the ones that need to be stripped away for us to realize God's place in our own lives. Shamtagadura took us through delayed answers, the answers that sometimes you think they're not answered. We give up, sometimes you think they're never going to be answered. But she took us through how ultimately, after years, God answered her wish. God's plan, how God had this plan that in her mind, she had her own plan, but she felt like God was changing it at every point. Also made us aware of how At times, childhood depression is a reality, and at times, parents may not be able to pick it up. Yet, you may just be thinking the child is just sulking. Nosizo choga, finding nosizo, finding yourselves, finding God's plan for you. If you sometimes we try to look further, so far away, but sometimes we may need to just find ourselves in who we truly are. And Joseph Mucho, the path not taken, there are paths that we think, we have no idea where God is leading you, but sometimes God has a plan. He'll give you the plan in a path that you never saw yourself in. Tawana Mavurere, the school of pain and victory, surviving a horrific accident that everyone thought he was going to die, even medical professionals thought that was going to be the end of it. But still, God remained faithful. And Brenda Walsh, Christ, the healer of hearts. One lesson I learned from that was that forgiveness is a gift that you give yourself. And sometimes we hold on so much to the past hurts and we don't move on because we're holding on to so much hurt that we've been subjected to. Sarahina Maoyoyo, I fell in love with my abuser, but God, and at times we expect the very same people we have hurt us to be the ones to take us out of the mud, and we lose focus of the focus that where we are supposed to be focusing on the fourth man. You lose our focus and our direction. Pastor Skumbuzo Dube, living a legacy as a childless man, and as our African society has made us think, we often think that a marriage is not enough without children. And yes, there's so many marriages that have been broken because they are not children. But there was a challenge that I like, that we have to be the living legacies. Whether we have children or not, are you a living legacy? Dr. Eric Walsh, playtime is over. One thing I also learned was that you don't need to squander a crisis. You don't have to live a crisis while bitter. It's supposed to refine you. You're supposed to come out a better Christian. Sometimes you say, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. But sometimes the stronger bit is us being mean to the people around us because of what we've been through. Kamisa Tengile, God's vision of you, finding yourself where she was trying to run away from. With God's unchanging love and faithfulness, how God still remained faithful in her own life even after seeing a series of misfortunes and mishaps. Last week, Mrs. Mitty took us through some things that we think these are just my issues, but the title was, if it matters to you, it matters to the Master. She challenged us to still be our best, and God knows what is best for us. And here we are on episode 19, saying when God's answers are higher than our requests. So as we open our discussion today, I just thought of reflecting back on the past 18 episodes. And if you have missed any of those episodes, go and check any of those, and you can binge watch. There's so much good stuff for you to learn from them. There's things that have edified me, they edified even the guests, and I'm sure most of people here have been edified. And do remember to just share with us the episode that has spoken to you the most. What's the most profound lessons you've learned? So today, as we introduce our title, we want to look at John 11. It's a popular story. I want us to go to John chapter 11 from verse 14. John 11 from verse 14 and 15, and then we'll jump to verse 20. Verse 14 says, then Jesus said to them plainly, Lazarus is dead. Verse 15, and I am glad for your sakes that I was not there, that you may believe. Nevertheless, let us go to him. This is Christ telling his disciples. The disciples are wondering, he's saying Lazarus is asleep. Then he says, no, actually, I mean he's dead, but I'm happy that he's dead. It doesn't make sense. How is Christ happy that he was not there when his friends needed him the most to be there when he was not feeling well? And then he lets him die. And then verse 20, now he's meeting the sister. Verse 20 to verse 23. Verse 20, then Martha, as soon as she heard that Jesus was coming, went and met him, but Mary was sitting in the house. Now Martha said to Jesus, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Verse 22, but even now I know that whatever you ask of God, God will give you. And verse 23, Jesus said to her, your brother will rise again. So this is Jesus bringing to Martha's attention his possibility of bringing something greater than the image of Jesus that she had. All she thought was Jesus. She had seen him heal, but she had no idea that Jesus could even raise someone from the dead. And peradventure, sometimes we have these things that we've prayed and we hope for, But at times God may let us go through the pain of not having those things in so that we may have to experience Him exceeding our expectations. So yeah, that is the title that you want to go with today. So allow me to welcome our guest this week. Our guest for this week is Sister Patience Magidie, all the way from SA, coming to talk to us about the title when your request when God answers for us, they are bigger than our request, as we have talked about in this our title. So I'd like to welcome Patience. Welcome Patience to our show.
Thank you.
Okay, so please raise your voice a bit. I can't hear you. So welcome Patience to our show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Okay, thank you. We're delighted to have you here, and we are happy. We're looking forward to learning from you. So tell us something. Who is Patience Magidie? There's some people who know you here. Some people may not have an idea who you are. Who is Patience Magidie?
Where do I start? When you are familiar with something in great detail, you may actually not know what to say, in general. So for me to just say who I am in general, I'll just say I love Jesus. I'm a, I'm a young woman who's passionate about work, and I I love shopping. I love shopping and stream because for me, I think that's a cheaper alternative to therapy. So I really love those things with all my heart. But I think after Jesus, there's no one worth talking about really. So there's nothing much for me to say about who I am.
Okay, so Patience is a young lady who loves Jesus. That's how she chose to describe herself. It's a young lady who loves Jesus and also loves shopping. Interesting. So yeah, she loves Jesus and she loves talking. So when you heard the title of our show, A Story of Unfulfilled Dreams, what comes to mind when you hear the title, A Story of Unfulfilled Dreams?
Well, I think now that this is the 19th episode, um, I've heard already from the past speakers that I thought that it was just a story of unfulfilled dreams. Okay, like people come here to talk about what didn't happen in their life. But after following, I actually think this title um, actually shows us the other side when things start happening. So we have dreams, we have hopes, but God sometimes crushes those things so that we can see the bigger picture that He has for our lives. So when that title comes to me, I'm actually very excited to hear what God has done for the person whose dream was crushed.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for that explanation. Yeah, it's an explanation. It's not necessarily about sad things. There are people who are having an argument. Someone says they thought it's about maybe for young people who are struggling to understand, who are just thinking, I wanted to be a doctor and I felt to be a doctor. I wanted to be this and I felt to be that. But it's about our plans that don't go our way, but how still amidst of our plans being derailed, failing to go where we want them to be, how God still can bring some goodness out of it. And in this case, we're talking about how sometimes He has this ideal for us. He wants to bring something even bigger, and yet at times our minds, what we think or what we have in our minds is actually shallow compared to what God has prepared for us. And I want us to read this quote here as we get into our discussions. From the book The Gospel Workers. We explain about it more, but I just want to get to us to understand this. It says, we all desire immediate and direct answers to our prayers and are tempted to become discouraged when the answer is delayed or comes in an unlooked for form. But God is too wise and good to answer our prayers always at just the time and in just the manner we desire. He will do more and better for us than to accomplish all our wishes. And because we can trust his wisdom and love, we should not ask him to concede to our will, but should seek to enter into and accomplish his purpose. Our desires and interests should be lost in his will. So this Gospel Workers, page 219, telling us about how sometimes we all want, because we're in this instant generation, we all want stuff to just happen as and when we want them to happen. And sometimes it's hard for us to understand why stuff does not really go our way, and why God allows it to go the way it is. But just because we are still on this side of heaven, it's inevitable that we have each and everything that we plan go the exact same way that we hope it to. But still, above all, God is always faithful. Hey, amidst all that we have to go through, we have to encounter, God still is faithful and he still continues to be faithful. So yeah. As we continue, I want us to also zoom on the bit that says he will do more and better for us than to accomplish all our wishes. So at times we think in our minds that what we have for ourselves, the ideal that we have for us is exactly what is best for us. But because our minds are so shallow, we can't tell, we can't comprehend exactly what God has in store for us, and we are just stuck in wallowing. Really, why would God allow this to go? Why would God allow me to go through this? Why would God not just allow this? And there are moments where I really wanted this thing to go through. I really wanted this to happen, but it just does not happen the same way that I have hoped it's supposed to be. So, but there's always this encouragement from the book Psalm 84 verse 11. It says, the Lord is gracious. The Lord is gracious. He will not withhold anything, nor will withhold no good things from them that walk uprightly. He will never withhold a thing from them that walk uprightly. So unfortunately, we seem to be having a connectivity issue from our guest side, but we hope that we will be able to work it out just now.
When peace like a river attended my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever, my Lord, thou hast taught me to say, it is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well. It is well with my soul. And Lord, haste the day when my faith shall beside the clouds be rolled back as the scroll. The trump shall resound, and the Lord shall descend. Even so, it is well with my soul.
Hello, we are sorry for that connectivity glitch, but I guess we're back up and hopefully that gets sorted. Okay, we're not sure what just happened, but hopefully that God's will prevail and we'll be able to continue this. Patience, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Thank you. Beautiful. Okay, so we're just getting on our third question. So tell me something. We're sorry for that glitch. To our viewers, we're not sure what happened, but we trust that God will help us. You've always felt that God has your best interest at heart. And when was the earliest you learned that lesson?
Not exactly. I haven't always felt like God had my best interest at heart. Of course, He has all the time, but sometimes it just doesn't feel like it, you know. But for God, I think being misunderstood comes with the job. So most of the times when things don't go well for us, we always feel like God is abandoning us or God doesn't care. So there are instances when I felt like I was all alone and God is not there. But and I can't really tell when I, first realized that. But um, I haven't felt always that God has my best interests.
Okay. No, that's all right. Beautiful. But now we want to talk about this particular instance we want to talk about. So kindly take us through an experience of yours that stands out in your life where you had a particular need and you desperately wanted something, but turns out God had a bigger ideal for you. Yeah.
Okay. So this goes back to 2013. So
Okay.
I was at the University of Zimbabwe at the time, and we went to church on Sabbath, Mount Pleasant Church actually. And when we got there, we had that there was going to be a 3-week revival starting on the Sunday. So we were asked to go out and invite people. And, as the average Christian, we just did the bare minimum, hey, we have a, revival series at church. Would you want to come? But we didn't really stress it that much. Okay, for me and a few friends I know, we're just like doing it so casually, like we do all the time. And then we went to church the Sunday, and actually, Pastor Timuri was going to do the 3-week revival. Those who know him, he's so powerful and he's just a blessing. So we got there, and before he started preaching, he said, is anybody here with 15 guests? Did anybody bring 15 guests to church? And I'm thinking, who would do that? I mean, so he went down to 14, 13, 12, 10, 5. Nobody had even brought 5 people. So he said, he actually had a little box in his hand. So he said, I have this gift to give whoever brings 15 people to the prayer meetings. So, as Ashley has already said, the past episodes have always been, something, serious. We have spoken about divorce. We've spoken about sexual abuse. People have spoken about childless marriages and stuff like that. But my testimony is lighthearted. It's not really, okay, it's deep because I mean, yeah, God is in it, so it's deep. But it's not something so, scary or out of it. Yeah. So anyway, we went to church. So he said, whoever brings 15 people to the prayer meetings is going to be the new owner of this Galaxy tablet, the Samsung Galaxy tablet, the latest of the time. I was looking at my BlackBerry, okay? I was a student and I was broke and I had a BlackBerry. And that BlackBerry, if you remember well, those phones would just freeze. You're busy, talking to someone over the phone. Next thing, the screen is just frozen. You can't do anything. Maybe it will work tomorrow morning. So I was like, wow, I need to bring 15 people to get this tablet. So I was sitting there in church thinking already, who am I going to invite tomorrow? And then, so after the prayer meeting, I went to the hostel and I was telling people, I was telling all my, corridor mates, whatever, guys, there's this program at church. Now I was so zealous. When they told us at church we must bring people, we just did it so casually. But now I was so motivated. I'm going around telling everybody. And the next day on campus, my schedule wasn't hectic. So around 12 p.m., I would already be done with my classes. So I literally took on this mission to go around, telling people to come to church with me. And you should have seen the boldness. And I'm wondering now, why didn't I just go around inviting people even without the, you know, tablet in mind? So I was going around, guys, please come with me to church. I was calling people up, making sure they will come with me and all that stuff. So the very,
Trying to get to 15 people.
yes, I was trying to get to 15. So now, the first night, about 3 people came with me. I was not impressed. I'm like, guys, there's a prize at stake. So we went to church, and that day, Pastor Timuri did a countdown. So I'll be like, hi, did anybody bring 15 people? Nobody stood. 14, 13, 10. No one. He went down to 5. No one had brought 5 people. And so the struggle continued night after night. I would sit there in nervous anticipation, like, I just hope no one brought 15 people. Can you imagine how selfish this thing got? I was even thinking, I'm the one who's supposed to get this thing. And I just hope nobody else brought 15 people. Okay. So my eyes are on this prize. Okay. And we'll see as this story develops that I was missing the big picture. I was so myopic. I just wanted to get this tablet and I was doing anything I can to get it. So one fine day, I had 8 people come with me to church. I was
Wow.
so excited. I was so excited. I was like, finally, this is the day I say goodbye to my BlackBerry and welcome in my new Galaxy tablet. So I got to church and great disappointment. It was literally the 1844 vibes. I'm there sitting, and then, at that point, I'm even thinking, look, we don't even need to do these announcements. We don't even need to do song service. Why don't you just get into the real thing? So, time came, Pastor Timuri stood to preach. Guys, he literally just went into the word. Pastor, you forgot something. I'm there sitting, and all the 8 people are sitting with me. Like, obviously, he was gonna say, "Did anybody bring 8 people?" And we all just, spring up. But
Yeah.
anyway, he did not even ask, and I was crushed. But anyway, I was like, okay, maybe he's going to do it at the end or somewhere in the sermon. He just forgot. He preached the whole sermon, okay? He sat down. We went home, and that was it. And remember, students always have commitments. Now I have tests coming up, I have assignments. So to get 8 people to come with you at once, it's actually something. So obviously the next few days were not going to be the same. So anyway, I kept, I was very confident that I'll get this thing. So the next day, I also, got my friends, are you coming and whatever. I think I had like 3 people come with me. And guys, now this was like, it was worse than the other day. This was now the great disappointment. We got to church and Pastor Timuri, he didn't forget now. He said, did anybody bring 15 people? And then this guy with 15 people just sprang from his seat and, marched to the front and he got the, tablet. I was crushed, okay? I was crushed. I felt so, I felt betrayed by God. Like, God, you knew I needed this thing, But anyway, I was sad for days. But anyway, I recovered from that quickly. And when I recovered from that thing, that's when I started realizing certain things that in my selfishness I had overlooked. So there was a guy who came with me from the very first day. And when I told him, oh, we're meeting for church, whatever, he said, okay, we'll meet up at 6 o'clock by the bus stop, because there was transport organized to ferry students from the campus to the church. So I got there and he was carrying this book. When we go to meetings, we just carry those small notepads and whatever. He had like those counter books, like a 198 paged thing. He wrote stuff in there every single night. I was taking notes, and every time he would ask me questions and stuff. But maybe I was not so interested, because I mean, okay, dude, you're just here to make me get my tablet, okay? So, anyways, yeah. So finally, there were other two guys who also joined in, and they were coming every single night. So when I realized, okay, the tablet is gone, I actually started noticing that these people were growing in faith. Like every single day, they were asking questions. They always wanted to know more, and stuff like that. So the third week came, because remember, this was a 3-week revival series. So the third week came, and on the Friday, the pastor was doing the final call. Okay, so he did the whole thing, and those guys, and like I was obviously always sitting close to them because they were my guests. So when the pastor did the call, they all stood up, and they were going to be baptized the next day. I, in that instant, I realized that I had missed the point. And I just cried. I just sat there. I saw this thing before me and I cried, because I realized how I was missing the main thing. I was running after a perishable thing, not seeing that my reward would be greater in heaven for actually bringing people to Jesus. So, anyways, I actually, to me, if my story would end there, I would actually be very content. I invited people to church and they got baptized. And for me, that was like, I mean, Lord, thank you. This is, wonderful. But God
Okay,
has
so
something
can
big.
I hold you? Can I pause you there for a bit? It's an interesting story of a first year student. She comes to the university, gets to church. Yes, there's this prize of a Samsung Galaxy tablet, whatever version that was, in 2013, when she decides she was going to go through the byways and highways of UZ and invite everyone that they're going to meet and whatever. I'm actually thinking, I was there at the time. I probably didn't look for 15 people. I remember that announcement, but I did go around looking for people. Why did you have so much? What made you feel you really needed to have this tablet? I'm sure there are so many people actually watching who probably remember that instance. But why particularly did you? And then there's this guy who brings these people in a combi, these 15 people at once in a combi. So why did you badly want that tablet? Before we get to your contentment, when you realize that these guys are baptized, why was it so
Okay.
special to you?
Okay. So, as a matter of fact, I did not have a PC. I didn't have a laptop at school, and all I had was this freezeberry. Those blackberries would always freeze, so people called them freezeberries. So that's all I had, and sometimes at the university, I think there were I don't remember, but there were just a few computers at the library, and almost everyone wants to use them at the same time. So for me, having a tablet was going to be like, somewhere there. It was going to help me. And so obviously I
It
had a
was your
good
only way
motive.
out.
I need this. I mean, yeah, yeah, it's not like I'm going to use it for any bad things. God just let me have it. So that was basically it. But that's where I'm going with the story now. Um, when I had okay, so can I continue, or you want to ask something
Sure,
else?
sure, sure, sure. Go
Okay,
ahead.
so yeah, so like I said before, if my story was going to end with the baptism of 3 people, I led to Christ, I was going to be very content. But on the Monday, so everything happened on Saturday, and then we went our separate ways. On Monday, I'm in my sister's room because my sister was also at USAT at the time. So we together there. We were just talking, and then I get a call from a South African number because I was in Zimbabwe at the time. So I get a call from South Africa, and I wasn't expecting anyone to call me. So this was the Kellogg's Foundation. So this is a foundation in the States, but they had an office in South Africa, and they were offering me a scholarship. Okay, so I was just there like, what? So they called me, they're like, look, we have funding for you. You have to confirm that you have a place to study in South Africa and get back to us. So what happened is before I went to use it, when I was in A level 2012, I did, so my uncle said to me, look, if you get 15 points, I'm going to buy you a laptop. I worked my tail to the ground. I worked so hard trying to get 15 points, but I didn't get 15 points. I got 12, which is not bad, but the deal was 15 or nothing. Okay. So, well, the laptop thing failed. So that's one of the unfulfilled dreams. So, going further, I applied now. So, I have 12 points. I want to go to uni. Then I apply to use it. So I wanted to do social work. I've always wanted to do social work. I applied for social work, and whenever you apply, obviously you have to put two other, choices. But my preference was social work, and I put sociology and psychology. So after a while, then they'll actually release the names in the newspaper and all. So I went to buy the newspaper, Sunday Mail. Yeah, I got there, and I'm going through all the names. My name is not there. So I'm like, okay, I did well enough to get into social work. What's happening? So when I went to inquire, they told me, no, our cutoff points for girls was 13, so we couldn't consider you. But for psychology and sociology, the cutoff points was like 10 or something like that. But they did not admit me. So that didn't make sense to me. Anyway, they were like, no, you need to reapply. So I paid $20 to apply the first time. The second time it went to $30. I applied, I put sociology, psychology, and real estate something. So I just, now you're just saying, I just want to do anything. Because for my mom, it was important to go to use it, okay? I mean, she considered it the best university. So I applied again. I was rejected. Okay, the second time, and I mean that was like baseless. They don't have an excuse. I did well. There are people with 6 points or 7 points getting places, and I have 12, and I'm not getting admitted. I tried the third and last time. So this time I paid $50 for the application. I put up all those preferences and stuff, and still I was rejected. Now, this was not making sense to me at all. And I remember my little brother saying to my mom, you know what? Maybe God has a plan. Maybe God doesn't want her to go there. But I mean, he was just a little boy, and who was going to listen to him? So anyway, somebody had to speak with the university to say, hey, look, this person really needs a place, and she did well. So please just make her do something. At this point, it was just make her do something. I remember I was now doing English, Portuguese, and linguistics. But anyway, now after the incident, when those people were baptized and I'd given up on the dream of ever being a social worker, I get a call from the Kellogg's Foundation, who are sponsoring social workers, nurses, and medicine students. And they say they have funding for me. I was blown away. I'm like, Lord, what is this? So I remember because when it happened, I had been applying to use it and getting rejected. And then one of my aunts was like, look, I found this thing in the newspaper. Maybe you'd want to apply. That was the Kellogg's thing. I just did it so casually because I'm used to being rejected by now. So I just did it so casually. I sent it through. They called me for an interview. The interview was literally 5 minutes. Okay. 5 minutes, I was out. And then now they were like, okay, you need to apply to some university. I'd applied to one university in South Africa. And now, when I got this call, then I called that university and they told me, look, we misplaced your application. We don't have it. And now I was supposed to call the scholarship people like by end of day to let them know, which university I was going to and stuff. And now I'm thinking, look, I have funding, but I don't have a place. I mean, what is that? Normally, you have a place to study, but you don't have funding. But now I have funding, I don't have a place. So now God was yet to show up and show off. So I then called my mom. We were praying about it. And then one of my aunts again is like, look, I started with someone who's working at Wits University, and he happened to be in Zimbabwe at the time. So my mom met up with the guy. We gave him my documents and stuff. This was October, guys. And for international students, applications close on the 31st of August. So this is October. I mean, really, what is God going to do now? So he went there, and it's just like God had, planned this whole thing out. They did not need anything else. They just took the documents, and in a matter of weeks, I was admitted, and now I had to work on, visas and all that stuff. But here is how God came through for me. When I got admitted at Wits, I was just like, okay, it's Wits. I didn't even know much about it. Now, I realized my mom wanted me to just go to use it because for her, that's the best university in Zimbabwe. But she had a plan for me to go to the best institution in Africa. And my aunt wanted me to get 15 points so that I get a laptop. And my bursary came with a laptop, with everything installed. They just gave me an address, go and pick up your machine, everything installed. And I brought 8 people to get a tablet, but God gave me, through that bursary, allowances enough to buy, I don't know how many of those tablets. I got the upgrade I needed. I even upgraded to an iPhone. I didn't have to buy that Samsung thing. I'm not saying these things to actually, I'm bragging about the goodness of God, because he did all those things to show me that his plans or his answers are wiser than our requests. I actually prayed, from a young age, I've been told, whatever you need, tell God. Okay. I prayed for that Galaxy tablet. I prayed, Lord, I'm going to find 15 people and I get that tablet. I prayed, but God did not answer. And at the time, it felt like God is, just leaving me and he's just blue ticking me, like he's leaving me on red. But God actually had a bigger plan for me. So there was a blessing in actually inviting those people. But I'm always thinking, what if I did it without that selfishness of the prize that I could get? What if I did it with that zeal, but with no motivation, of getting that something? So, yeah, I think that is the story.
Okay, thank you so much for that. And I'm just thinking, like you're saying, I'm sure there's so many people who actually were there at the time. They remember that the whatever tablet. Probably someone didn't even put that to mind, but because of where you're coming from, you struggle to get into school. Probably stuff isn't okay at home. You don't have enough things and stuff like that. All you need is that tablet. You don't care about the stores or anything. So the reason why we're sharing the story is for us to realize that sometimes there are things that we do for God, but with the wrong motive. We go out and out there, we are the best at this, we do whatever. And sometimes in the goodness of God, He allows some of the things that we want to come out, to not work out for our good, so that we do take a step back and take a self-introspection and realize that at times we're just so selfish. All I think about is myself. Probably the reason why I'm going up to do this job is because probably I could get this appraisal from people or whatever it is. But do we really need to get that kind of motivation where someone has to stand on the pulpit? And I think in the goodness of God, that good pastor deliberately does not call you on the day that you manage to bring 8 people at once. I've never done that, but you were bold enough. And if we could go ahead with that boldness and just go and share Christ and do whatever it takes to bring as many souls as we can, reward or no reward, I'm sure by now so many people would have known Christ. But sadly, because we are human and it's natural to be human, we only want the things that we think are good for us. So now, after this experience, I've said my lessons that I've learned from your lesson. What are the lessons that you have garnered from this experience of yours that you've just shared with us?
Okay. First and foremost, I learned that God's answers are wiser than our requests. So we are so limited. We're human. We're myopic. We concerned about the now. We are short-sighted. We just see, what is before us. But God sees a broader picture, and He sees and He knows what is best for us. So to begin with, God's answers are wiser than our requests. That is why sometimes He doesn't even respond. That's why He doesn't answer to some of the requests, because they're just so selfish. They're just so myopic, and He wants, something bigger and better for you. And the second thing is, don't limit God. Okay? Don't limit God. God wants to do. So I'm reminded of Ephesians 3 verse 20. God is able to do exceedingly abundantly above, what we ask or imagine. So for me, I was asking for that tablet. I was so sincere in my request. I wasn't even, okay, I was selfish in trying to get these 15 people to help me get the tablet, but my request was sincere. I really needed this thing. But God, I think God was actually, He felt limited by that. And that is why He responded in a way that made me realize that I was limiting Him, and He wanted to do something bigger, better, and, something that I could talk about, for, I think that tablet was just gonna, it's now even, I think we've even forgotten about them. They're so outdated now. But I'll never forget the whole experience that came, yeah.
Okay, that's beautiful, beautiful. And I'm thinking this is 8 years later, and probably going to be holding on to that. But the beauty of bringing a soul to Christ, if only we could know the value of a soul, the reason why Christ would still come to this earth to die for just one soul. And there you are, you're ignoring this person, this innocent soul who's trying so hard to understand this thing that you've invited them for, because all you want is for you to get the supposed pride. So now, we're in context with where you're coming from, what would you tell someone, because you've been struggling to get answers to exactly what you wanted, and ultimately God gives you an opportunity to have all your tuition covered and stuff like that, and even greater things that you expected. So what would you tell someone whose ordeal or requests them to go unanswered? This could even be you advising yourself. Maybe you do have prayers that sometimes you struggle with. What would you tell someone who's struggling with some ordeals and some things that are not that are going unanswered?
I would just say, you need to hang in there, and you need to trust. You need to believe that God is working out everything for your good. As Romans 8:28 says, all things work together, okay? All things, not some things, not most things, but all things work together for good. So if you told me that all things work together for good when I was being rejected thrice, okay? 3 times I was rejected. If you told me all things work together for good, I was gonna think you're actually crazy. Or, if you told me that all things work together for good when I had funding and I don't have a place, I would not understand. But God, when all these things happen, we must know that God is trying to build you, okay? He's trying to build your character. And I would just say, sometimes God, you know, he allows our plans and our dreams and our hopes to die so that he can give us something better. He allows it to. So God could have simply made Pastor Timuri remember to call out people that day when I brought 8 people. He could, okay? But he allowed that I don't get it. And okay, so what I didn't mention actually in this story is the guy who brought the friends. He literally hired a minibus, got 15 people on the bus, and then they came. He just got the tablet, and that was it. So I felt like, I'm a bit, decent because I actually brought people who were coming constantly. I just didn't get a bunch of people to come with me or whatever. But God allowed, He even allowed someone else to get that, even though their plan was also not sincere. He allowed. But God had a better plan. And if I got the tablet, maybe I wasn't even going to be worried about any other thing. But God allowed that dream to die. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So now with what you know now, if I could put you in conversation with your younger self, you're sitting face to face with younger patients, what should you tell her with what you know now?
So I don't know if I would just talk to younger patients, but I think I would also want to address the current patients because adulting shows flames. So sometimes you forget those things. Sometimes you forget how God, has come through for you in the past, and you constantly want to sit down with yourself and look at how God has been good in your life to actually draw strength from those experiences. So what I would say is, I should always say that God is good, even with the confidence I do not feel. Okay, just believe that God is good. That is a good starting point. Because
Okay.
if it feels like He doesn't, you distance yourself from Him because you feel like He doesn't care. But we need to constantly believe that God is good, even when we don't feel confident of the facts. And my mom is always saying, there's this quotation in Help, no, what is it? I think Ministry of Healing, which says, God never leads His children otherwise than they would choose to be led if they could see the end from the beginning.
I love that quote.
So yes, if we would see, if God could show us, okay, where He's taking us, if God could show us how the story will end, maybe we would appreciate the pain, we would appreciate the detours, we would appreciate the crushed dreams, okay? But the fact that we do not see those things, we constantly maybe feel like, no, um, God doesn't care. And so I feel like even though God might not show you where He's taking you to, even if God might not reveal things to you, and even if it may feel like it's a hopeless situation, God has left you alone, you should know that He has the best interest at heart. He sees the bigger picture, and He sees, the end from the beginning, but we only see where we are now. So I'll tell my younger self to hang in there and to trust God, okay? And if you can't see His face, trust His heart. God will never do something that will harm us. God is too good to be unkind. And so, yeah, that is what I would tell my younger self.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. And thank you for even communicating to your current self because it's easy to forget the things that God has taken us through. There's a reason why we deliberately decide, and you were quick to give a disclaimer that my story is not that deep. And at times we think that we need to hear from the big stories, from the so-called deep stories, but from the different perspective. There are some of these short-sighted prayers that we always make, some of these things that we do and think and we lose sight of what God really wants us in this life. And as you were talking about, I was thinking of this text in 1 Corinthians 9 verse 24. 1 Corinthians 9 verse 24 is a text that that addresses runners in a race, addresses people who are trying to be temperate, people who are trying to be people who are trying to be fit for a certain reason, for a particular reason. So 1 Corinthians 9 verse 24 says, do you not know that those who run in a race all run, but one receives the prize? Run in such a way that you may obtain it. And then verse 25 then says, and everyone who competes for the prize is temperate in all things. Now they do it to obtain a perishable crown, but we do it for an imperishable crown. An imperishable crown. So if we can take a look at our lives, thank you, Sheila. If we can take a look in our lives, there are so many things that we do for a perishable crown. We'll go all out. We'll do whatever it takes. If it's our jobs, if it's our schoolwork, if it's whatever that is this temporal promise, we'll do whatever it takes. We'll go all out. But when it comes for the work of the Lord, we have to see an immediate reason why I should do that. If there's no benefit, if there's no immediate benefit, I'm not going all out. I'm going to be complaining about this thing not working out, this thing, this program, this church program is not interesting, this whatever. We don't put our best foot forward when it's God's work. But when it's things to do with ourselves, things that we think will benefit from this and this, we'll go all out, we'll do whatever it takes. So may we learn from this experience, that may we be able to have the right priorities. I understand it was a young child coming from home, and she comes in the mind, in her myopic view, if she gets the Samsung tablet, she's done. But there's more at stake. There are souls at stake. There's someone out there who's now active in the church because you invited them, intending to get that thing. So in the end, you disregard the importance of these 3 souls, but you think it's important that you only get 15 people at once to get this thing that you want. So may this speak to us that we be less selfish. We realize that we need to do whatever it takes to bring people to Christ. Whether there's a prize or there's no prize, the one who is important, there's someone who's way more important than someone who's offering that tablet that you're talking about. There's someone who's important than maybe my boss at work, or maybe my degree. Not that the degree is not important. It's important. The work is important. But it's also important that we put the same, if not even more, effort in the things that are relevant to God, not just for an immediate benefit that we think and we see and we hope we'll learn from it. So yeah, this marks the end of our show, and I'm sure we have learned so much. As we get to the end of our show, what would be your parting words, Patience, from this experience of yours that you've decided to share with us?
I would just want to read from John 11. There was the story of Lazarus that we started with, but I would consider verse 5 and 6. It reads, Jesus loved these sisters and their brother very much. It hurt him to see them suffering, yet he stayed there for 2 more days. So sometimes we wonder why God is not answering our prayers, or why he is delaying. But from the story of Lazarus, we actually learn that sometimes the delay is actually just as much as an answered prayer. It actually works out for good. Sometimes, as you realize in the story of Lazarus, Jesus did not come through so that the glory of God would be seen. So sometimes, when God responds late, or when he shows up 4 days late, we think that he abandoned us. But from the verses I read, it reads that Jesus loved them so much. He loved Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. He loved them so much. And it hurt him that they were suffering. So he wasn't excited, or he wasn't happy that they're struggling, they're suffering, the brother is sick. He was not happy. But it was important for him to be late. So, like I said before, all things work together for good. So, God, sometimes it's important for him to delay. It's important for him to be late, but it's for your own good. And that delay might just be for the glory of God. Because when I look at this story, if Jesus came through and healed Lazarus from the illness, people around would not have known more about God. But look at this picture. Lazarus had been dead 4 days, and now Jesus came. He resurrected him. There were mourners, there were relatives, there were friends, there were neighbors. All of those people would not have witnessed the power of God if Lazarus was, healed. So sometimes God has to delay, and it is important that you realize that He is not abandoning you, but all things work together for good.
Amen, amen, amen. Beautiful. Thank you so much for that. Even the people that Jesus loves so much sometimes also have to experience these delays, and it's for our good. Joseph says, Great show, and thank you, Patience, for your story. Thank you, Joseph, for that remark. So yeah, this marks the end of our show, and it leads us to the end of our show. So as we conclude, I'll read again the quote that I read earlier. This quote comes from the book Gospel Workers from page 219. Gospel Workers, page 219 says, we all desire immediate and direct answers to our prayers and attempted to become discouraged when the answer is delays or comes in an unlooked for form. But God is too wise and good. But God is too wise and good to answer our prayers always at just the time and in just the manner we desire. He will do more and better for us than to accomplish all our wishes. And because we can trust His wisdom and love, we should not ask Him to concede to our will, but should seek to enter into and accomplish our purpose, all His purpose. Our desires and interests should be lost in His will. So this marks the end of our program. Yes, we may have immediate results and immediate answers that we expect and we hope for, but at times they may never come to be, or they may be delayed. But in the waiting, whatever we do in the waiting is what is important. This is what the show is about. The story of Unfulfilled Dreams is about just any plan that does not go our way, but how ultimately we see God's hand and we see God's goodness. And I hope that we have all learned from this experience that Patience has shared with us, and hopefully we will learn to be less selfish. We'll ask that God helps us to be less selfish, and we'll be able to realize what is important, to do whatever it takes to bring more to Christ, souls to Christ, not just for our own good, but how beautiful will it be now in the end when you aim and when you get those 3 stars from the people who you witnessed initially with just an objective of just attaining that galaxy tablets of that time. So I hope we'll do whatever it takes to make sure that we bring some soul to Christ. We take whatever it takes. Sheila says, and Sheila said it was our last episode. So yeah, so like I had alluded to earlier, we are going to be taking a little break. This is going to be marking the end of season 1 of A Story of Unfulfilled Dreams, and we'll be taking a little break. And I'm sure God has so many blessings that He has in store for us as we recharge, we sit down, we connect, we digest the things that we have learned over this past episodes. I'm sure God has a plan for us that in season 2 will come back stronger, and I'm sure He's prepared so many things for us. And ultimately, God, all things work together for good. He has so many big plans for us. The big plans that God has for us may not be this immediate things that He has for us, but ultimately He knows what is best for us. Hebrews chapter 11 from verse 13 then says, these all died in faith, not having received the promises, but having seen them afar off. So when you realize that at times we may not even get the promises, we may just have seen them, but confess that there were strangers and pilgrims on this earth. This earth does not promise any good things, but ultimately what we all want to aim is that we be able to see God's goodness in our things that don't go away, the ugly stories that we don't like to talk about so much, but we be able to be with God, to focus on the fourth man in the fire, and not just focus on the fire. The reason why the guys who were in the fire with Christ, the 3 Hebrew boys were in the fire with Christ, were able to not smell like the fire is because they focused on the fourth man. They didn't focus on whatever was going on around them. So yeah, I've enjoyed this, and I'm sure we've all benefited. This has also been helpful to me. I have my own things that I've struggled with, and I believe this has been something that has helped us helped us learn so much from these different experiences. And I trust and hope that there's one story that has resonated with each and every one of us, that ultimately we may be able to realize that we're not the only people who are going through what we go through, but that God has our interested hearts. So with that being said, this marks the end of season 1 of A Story of Unfulfilled Dreams. See you when season 2 starts. And for me, Ashla Nora, your host, and Patience Magidie, for now, it's bye.
Bye.
When peace like a river attended my way, when sorrows like sea